Two readings today, both of which are quite challenging because they're about mystery and there's a lot of symbolism. And I think those stories in some ways might leave us puzzled and asking questions rather than giving us clear answers. We have the story of Elisha and Elijah. And again, Elijah appears in both those readings in different ways. But he was about to return to God. And if you remember, Elijah is one of the few people who were not seen to die. And Elijah went up to heaven. And it's quite an amazing story. And as I say, puzzles, not questions answered. But Elijah had already acknowledged that Elisha was going to be the prophet that was going to succeed him. And so there they are, walking together. And 3 times Elijah says, I've got to go. And you stay here. And Elisha doesn't want to stay. He wants to follow him, keep close by him. Because he's expecting him to suddenly go back to his Father in heaven. And so he follows him these 3 times. And there's a group of 50 prophets around, which is a little curious as well. But they're gathering around them as well, people who are obviously watching to see what's going to happen next. And they're all aware that Elijah, something's going to happen, but they're not sure what. There are whirlwinds around them. It's all the symbolism of God at work. And then Elijah says to Elisha, what is it that you need to do this? And Elisha asks to take on Elijah's spirit, to be as strong and spiritual as he is. Now Elijah says that's difficult. But if you see me going to heaven, then you will know that you are the person who is ready and prepared to take this on. Because then my spirit will be with you. You will be believing and have faith that this is all possible because you can see it. Amazing words. It was acknowledged in those days that the eldest son would be privileged to receive double the worth of the father to the other sons after death. And now Elijah, in a way, is asking for this. He's asking for the prime part of Elijah so that he can take over. And then we have this end part, because we have fire, a symbol of God's presence. We have horsemen and chariot. And it comes, we don't know whether Elijah goes up in the chariot or whether it's just there as part of this process. But Elijah is seen to rise. He doesn't die as we would normally expect a human to die, but rises up. Wonder, amazement. And Elijah is there, seeing all this and thinking, yes, now it is my turn. We didn't finish the story, but what happens next is that Elijah picks up the cloak of Elijah. He acknowledges the power that is around him. And he goes back to the River Jordan and he strikes it with the cloak and the river divides, as it did when Elijah did that. Great symbolism. Memories of the Exodus, walking through the water to safety. God at work. Visions, miracles, things happening unexpectedly. But special stories that tell us of God's power. And then we move on to the story of the Transfiguration, where again Elijah is present because we see him appearing with Jesus on the mountain and with Moses. Special people. I was going to put a screen up, but my computer decided not to be working properly last evening, so I didn't get it on the screen. But there isn't a lot of what I would call modern artwork of the Transfiguration. But it gives you an idea of the disciples cowering in the front there, and Jesus slightly raised off the ground, shining white. Moses is always shown with the tablets of the law, and Elijah usually with a scroll to show the words of the prophet. But important to just recognize what's going on there. I will give it to our little person at the back, or perhaps I can give it to Sue to take to her. There is a colouring picture there which you might like to join us with doing. I don't know if you like colouring, do you? Or at least you can have a look at a picture of what I'm talking about. There is a fundamental understanding in Christianity that we've all been created in the image of God. That's a difficult one. What is the image of God? But Jesus was in the image of God when he had his ministry on earth. And we too are here in God's image, representing him in what we're doing. This transfiguration can be seen at lots of different levels. But certainly we see that Jesus Christ is part of God. He is divine as well as human. And he models the essential nature of humanity as created in God's image and for the glory of God. It is a moment, as I say, when God in heaven and God on earth meet. Special moments. Christ's face changed. It was shining. It was white. And his clothes became dazzling white. Anselm Grum, in his book, Jesus, the Image of Humanity, says, if the face of God shines out on us in the man Jesus, if we look at this picture, we will be changed by it. Redemption comes about by reading the story. If I read it with all my senses, Martin Luther King put it very nicely, if we creep into the text of the story, actually think what is going on, we will emerge transformed. We encounter the figure of Jesus, and now that is shaping who we are. The disciples, I think very genuinely, were afraid. That vision of light and dazzling clothes was powerful and startling. And Peter's attempt to hold on to the glory of the moment by putting up tents for them wasn't what was required. The disciples had seen God's glory revealed in Jesus. But now, at the end of that, they come down from the mountain and set out on that difficult journey to Jerusalem. "This is my beloved Son, listen to him," God said. The teachings of Jesus were to be their guide through their lives, to the crucifixion, the resurrection, and beyond. William Temple famously said that the church is the only society that exists for the benefits of those who are not its members. An interesting way of looking at things. How are we able to hope those outside of the church to access it, to be transformed by it? How can we all glimpse God's glory? If we were to walk outside, as we will at the end of the service, and look around us, we may wonder to pause at God's creation. We've already looked at the wonder of spring flowers coming up after the winter, trees with buds on them, lambs being born in the fields. We can glimpse God in all of this. We might glimpse God at the celebration of a birthday, in the birth of a small baby, or in the wisdom of a close friend. Or maybe in a phone call that comes at just the right moment and lifts our spirits. Has that happened to you? I'm sure it has happened to all of us at some point. We've spoken about shining faces and God changing us. But it's not so much about a change in physical appearance, but a change in our actions and our thinking. We don't know an awful lot about what Jesus actually physically looked like. Does it matter? Does it matter what we look like? We can still be and do. We know Jesus was a wise teacher. He cared for the outside and those suffering. God is present in the ordinary as well as the extraordinary. And perhaps one of the main ways we can meet God is through prayer, through reading the Bible, through worship, and through our service to others. We do need those mountaintop experiences to feed us, to feed our spiritual growth and encourage us to be recharged to carry on, to face those trials which we will certainly meet in our everyday life. If you remember when Moses came down from the mountain with the tablets of the law, the people were afraid because his face was shining, because he'd met with God. And every time he went into the temple, this shining returned. So he decided he'd better hide it, and he put a veil on so that the people wouldn't be afraid. But does God want us to wear veils? I'm not sure that he does. I think we need to have that freedom to have unveiled faces which reflect God's glory. And we will reflect God's glory if we seek his truth. I wanted to show you another picture, and this is a curious one. I don't know whether you will have met it, but medieval Christian art depicted this idea of the truth and recognising it in the form of two female figures, Ecclesia and Synagoga. Have you met these before? Very attractive young ladies. And they became, in medieval times, especially across Europe and in this country, though we've lost most of our statues because of the Reformation, they were taken down. But you will see they are very attractive female figures. The one, Ecclesia, represents the church, and as such, she's holding the symbols. Sometimes a cross, a chalice maybe, to represent the sacraments. And Synagoga has a blindfold on. And sometimes she also has a scroll that is torn. And she, too, is an interesting character because she represents the synagogue, the Jewish faith. And these started appearing in temples, churches across Europe. You can still see one at Strasbourg. And I think in England, I think there's one remaining at Rochester. I'll pass these around so that you can see a bit more clearly. And thank you for, oh, we've got a picture, lovely. And that's the one I've got here, so I don't need to pass it around. Thank you very much. I was trying to do that last night, and as I say, my computer wouldn't respond at all. But they're very interesting. They're often seen in crucifixion pictures as well. But why attractive young ladies? Again, a lot of symbolism in there. Maybe thoughts of Eve, maybe thoughts of Mary. But I thought I'd just share that with you, how man interprets this wonder and mystery of God. But we do need to be alive to the truth of God, not have blindfolds or veils on. And as I say, these ladies often appear in crucifixion pictures. And again there, you get this idea of the veil being removed. Do you remember when Christ died, the curtain in the temple was torn and came down, so that the Holy of Holies became accessible, not just to the priests, but to everyone. That sense of the veil being removed by Christ as truth is revealed. And so divine glory is not just for clouds on the mountain. It's grounded in the needs of the world and individuals. How do we show we're Christians? Well, I hope we don't go around with veils over our faces. And I don't think we want to start wearing halos or something. Perhaps we wear a simple cross. We probably don't want to be looking as though we've got shining faces and dazzling clothes. We don't want to put people off. But something we can do which shows care is a smile. If we greet people with the light of a smile, how much that can say. If I asked you to turn to the person next to you and just smile at them, do you think they would smile back? I think they probably would. I can see some people smiling now as I'm looking at you. It's a lovely thought, isn't it? You can just spread a simple smile. Maybe not a laugh. We don't all laugh heartily all the time, but a simple smile to share. And so I challenge you, a smile each day in Lent. Pass it on. And so, enjoy your pancakes on Tuesday, Ash Wednesday, and then the first day in Lent next Sunday. And I always say at this time of year, Lent is a lovely time for us as Christians. It's a time when we can pause as we come up to Easter. Easter, that really important time for us in the church. But as we pause and reflect and take time maybe to read a special Lenten study book, or to just pray, take times and moments. Life is busy, but it's quite possible to find moments when you can pray. It's good to have a prayer reminder, and it's very easy to do. You might have somewhere in your house that think, as I pass this point, I'm going to say a prayer. It may be just a quick reminder of someone who's ill, or a reminder of something that you want to pray for in the world, or something else, or give thanks for the spring flowers. Maybe as you step through your back door or your front door, that could be a prompt. I'm going to just say a quick prayer to God. Or it may be as you boil a kettle and wait for it to come up. But just a reminder, an everyday thing that prompts you to give an extra prayer. And then that might put a smile on your face, which you can pass on. As I was thinking of that, I was thinking in our garden, we've got some of those little floor lights and on the wall so that we don't trip over as we come down the path, because we usually come in our back door, not our front door, because that's where we park. And those little lights, if the sun shone, they shine brighter. Yes, have you got some solar lights around where you are? And the sun feeds them. And for us too, we've got a son, an S-O-N, God's Son, who feeds us. And he perhaps doesn't make our faces actually give light, but he could put a smile on our face and brighten us up. And so we need that feeding, like the sunlight feeds those solar panels. And so we ask God to walk with us as we walk through Lent, even when the times are dark.